How's it going? Good morning. So I am here. If I didn't get a chance to meet you, I'm sorry. We can connect afterward. This is my daughter. Oh no, we're all out of donuts. Eden, who your babysitter list this morning. So, pardon. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for the donuts are all gone. They're all gone. Thank you all for being here. For the first Creative Mornings. Thank you. So, there are some things I need to read through for you all, just kind of for those who haven't been before, kind of understand what it means to be part of Creative Mornings, what Creative Morning is all about, and what we're going to kind of continue to do as we move forward. This is the first of many events. It's going to be here. Creative Morning meets once a month. Probably going to be the last Friday of the month, but we'll see based on schedules. And it's just to highlight different creatives in the community. And the focus is to build community and kind of keep that going. So, let me hit my thing. Bring a friend. So that was kind of the miracle of today, was that there was so many people that showed up. I was very surprised. But there is a huge benefit of this. So it says that the number one way people hear and learn about Creative Mornings is through friends. So every month this pops up. We'll try to be good about throwing it out early enough that you all can be aware of what's happening, but bringing people and just including people into that community. I am a designer and animator. If I haven't met you all before. I've been in Savannah for about 2 years, but it's really only been about a year that I've been here kind of full time. We travel a lot, so I'm finally getting plugged into the community. It's been lovely. And we do have some volunteers today. So I got Noah in the back. He is our photographer today. And we have Oren.
That's not my name.
There it is. Oh no! Pretend you didn't see that. Who was supposed to be signing people in, but did it anyways.
Yeah. You were doing it.
If somebody else would like to volunteer, there's a huge number of things that needs to happen, from finding sponsors, finding venues, finding speakers. You can reach out to this email, or just come talk to me afterwards, and we can get you involved in that. Another thing is if you'd like to help keep this going, you can Venmo me. It's just a QR code. Everything that I'm getting through here is going to be going back into this or help recoup costs from this event. I greatly appreciate it. Field trips. I'm going to use this thing as much as possible. I've never gotten this is power right here.
There's not a cat.
Exactly, yeah. Field trips are hosted by people like you from our global community. Every month there are a lot of fun things that people are learning and sharing. They're always free. You can see a list of them online for upcoming events, or you can apply to be a host. So if you go to CreativeMornings.com/field trips, you can learn more about that. There's a lot of these guys. We have, as I say, 238 chapters globally, 69 countries, around 27,000 attendants per month, 12,000 talks, and 13.7 million views of their videos. So this is a huge global community that you all are kind of popping into for the first time. And I'm glad that we could make it the first one here. There's a manifesto. So this is what I was talking about, that kind of is the underlying ideas and beliefs behind Creative Mornings. Everyone is creative. A creative life requires bravery and action, honesty and hard work. We are here to support you, celebrate with you, and encourage you to make things you love. We believe in the power of community. We believe in giving a damn. We believe in face-to-face connections and learning from others, hugs and high fives. Bringing together people who are driven by passion and purpose, confident that they will inspire one another and inspire change in neighborhoods and cities around the world. Everyone is welcome. So this is kind of this is too much power. I'm enjoying it. This is the belief behind Creative Mornings as a whole. This was started by, I believe, Tina in New York as something, because she felt lonely and disconnected from such a huge city. So trying to bring this down to a local level, from a global level, I think is a wonderful thing that Creative Mornings is all about. This month's theme is trust, which was chosen by the Islamabad chapter and illustrated by Ebram and Sheer, I believe. Trust is an invisible thread that weaves the fabric of our relationship and society together, but in turbulent times, doubt can unravel our strengths. Believe that people will do the right thing, trust the process, and that your creativity is a well that will never run dry. When we trust each other, we feel safe to share ideas, give feedback, and take risks. It requires vulnerability and a willingness to be open to the possibility of disappointment or betrayal. So trust is not purely a belief or faith, it is an act of choice. Trust is a gift. It must be given before it can be earned. So that is the global theme. These change out every month. I believe the next one's is ritual. Still working on a speaker, but we have a bunch of really interesting people lined up. Brings me to today's speaker. I had the pleasure of meeting Nancy through Brandon, I believe, who's had recommended me. She is a children's book author, illustrator, art teacher, and overall a wonderful human being. So I'll pass it over to you to get started. So round of
Oh, okay, great. Okay, thank you so much.
Great.
This is over here? Okay, great. I'm trying to see myself that big. So good morning. Thank you guys for being here today. And I am here to talk about the topic of trust. And Webster's dictionary says trust is the assured reliance on the character, ability, strength, or truth of someone or something. But I found that in life, our in-life experiences really inform how we look at that meaning of trust. So this is me at about 4 years old before I immigrated from South Korea to the U.S. I moved here with my family and they wanted a better life. While we were living here in the U.S., it was a very unstable childhood, and so in a short period of time, my parents passed away, I was adopted, and then I went to 3 different elementary schools. Probably one of the biggest consistent things in my life was drawing. I loved to draw. Making art was an extreme joy for me. So this is one of my early childhood drawings. This shows how old I am. I would run to the Sunday newspaper that would show up in our mailbox, and I would tear out the comics, and then I would go ahead and draw the characters from them. So I got a lot of joy out of that. So one of the things that I realized is that adults will leave you alone and won't really discourage you from drawing because you stay quiet and you're just doing your own thing. And so I realized in myself I developed a sense of trust because I could just rely on myself to create my own worlds, and I really enjoyed that. But anyways, let me see if I skip forward. Oh, it's a fancy one. Oh my goodness. I should have realized he's a motion media person. So anyways, I just lost that. But move on to the next one. Oh, it's that. It's really. Oh goodness. So anyways, here we go. Trust in teaching other people. So this is some photographs of me teaching elementary students art because I'm also an art teacher. And so much later on, I found trust in teaching others when I became an art teacher for Stilson Elementary School in Bullock County. And my students had an innate sense of trust in me, being their teacher. It gave me a lot of confidence that first year teaching. And I had the honor of being the person that taught them to draw, to paint, to sculpt their own unique creations. I enjoyed watching them as they went through the creative art making process. And for each student, what I found interesting is that depending on where they are developmentally and how they think through their problem solving, it's different for each person. And I enjoyed every single minute of that. So this is a picture of me, actually the elementary school that I first taught at. They call it, the librarian contacted me and said, can you come back and talk about being a children's book illustrator? So I did a presentation with them. And then over here is me presenting to a pre-K class at where I currently teach about writing and illustrating for children's books. So one of the things that I've learned from my students, I incorporate this into my teaching philosophy about creative work, that it's about having students really trust their instincts. Oftentimes we have doubts in our minds about, is this any good? And that can overshadow our creative spirit. So I think it's really important, especially when I'm creating my own work as a children's book author and illustrator, that I think about that unique voice and perspective that I have, because that's what makes my work different, and it also creates a connection with the people who are reading and looking at it. And it helps to create a better story. I apologize, I hope I do this part right. I'm so scared. I'm so scared of the clicker. Okay, whoa, there it goes. Trust in the process. So trusting in the process is part of what I've learned throughout my time as a children's book author and illustrator. So when I think about what I've learned in collaborating with other people and learning from other people, so oftentimes I'll work with an editor, my agent, beta readers, and also critique partners. And I have to give a shout out to my critique partners, Patty, Debbie, and Becky, who have really encouraged me to keep writing and to keep revising. So with that collaboration though, oftentimes we feel like it's like, constructive criticism, but sometimes we feel like it's a reflection of our inadequacies as a creator. But I look at it as it's a tool to hone my craft and to get better at it. And so that collaborative process of working on a children's book story, that input I get, I have to balance it, and then I think about it, is it still staying true to the vision and the story that I want to tell? At the end of the day, I found it makes a much more impactful story, getting those other eyes on my work. And one of the things that I truly learned, and I'm so grateful to two other illustrators, one of them is Jeff Hinchy, who, as you can see, I'm a dimensional illustrator. I hand cut, and then I photograph my work through digital finish. He spent about 4 hours talking to me about his creative process of cutting his artworks for his editorial illustrations. And then I spoke to another author-illustrator of children's books, Samantha Cotterill, and her work is gorgeous. I one day would love to reach to her level, but she shared her process as well. So I am scared again that if I click on this, but there's a video in the work. This shows me setting up one of my illustrations. So at the end of the day, people are like, wow, that's a lot of work. And that's just for setting up the work before I can shoot it. But for me, what I found, I trust that the things that I've experimented with, it really informs me and knows that I feel a lot of joy out of it, and that this is very soul satisfying for me. However you do it as a creative, whatever that takes, then you're on the right path. So believe in that sense of trust in yourself. Trust in learning others. So as we trust in learning others, creativity is not a straight path. There are highs and lows throughout it. I'm currently working on writing a middle grade novel for the first time, and that is very scary because I've never written anything beyond 32 pages. But luckily, I have met so many wonderful creatives. I've had the pleasure of interviewing over 200 creatives on my podcast called My Creative Life. And what I've learned from them is it's so inspiring to hear other people's stories about how they do their creative work. At the end of the day, we're all creating some part of ourselves and putting it out there. And it makes me just want to keep going because of that. It also makes me want to cheerlead others on in their own creative passions and pursuits. So the road to being a creative, it fluctuates. There are those ups and downs, but every little bit of success, just whatever it is, I look at it as a victory, and that I'm going to keep going. Because in the children's book publishing industry, the road is paved with tons of rejection. What I found is that I can't rely on just thinking about, I need to get this next book contract. It's not so much about that, because there are so many other factors that are outside of my control. And the biggest thing that I've learned is that I have to trust that I can build up my skill set, I can improve my storytelling, whether that's writing or illustrating my work, because that's going to end up resonating with somebody. So hopefully there's less rejection at the end of the day. Oh, trust in the journey. So trust in the journey, and wanted to talk about basically what I've learned as an art teacher and as a creator is that trust is something, as Lucas mentioned, it is like an invisible thread that's woven in and out of the creative process. So I found that I'm looking at a trust in myself, that those skills that I've developed over the years, they're going to be good enough. I trust in the collaboration with others because that's going to make it a better story at the end of the day. And then also the young readers that I'm creating the stories for, I love that they are giving me feedback at the end of their reactions from me telling it. So that insight is invaluable. So at the end of the day, all the efforts that I put into my work, I look at it as I'm going to have a story that I'm going to be proud of to one day share with the rest of the world. And so I look at those are my goals, and that's how trust has informed my work. Yeah, if you would like to check out my website to see more of my finished illustrations, you can click over the QR code, or my Instagram is @MillerIllustration, or you're welcome to check out any of the work that I love sharing process work, because like at the end of the day, I feel like we often just focus on that finished product, but it's all of those beginning little steps that we get there, and I found that part of connecting with other creatives very exciting. So you're welcome to check out any of those. I've also brought in some of the books that Holiday House is the publisher that I'm working with now on my debut as a children's book author and illustrator. I have some of the books my editor has worked on the table for you guys to share. So yeah, but thank you so much for coming.
Does anyone, there's like a 10-minute Q&A thing. Does anybody have any questions for Nancy?
Yes.
Tell us about your podcast.
Oh yeah, it's just been something I started. It's funny because I taught high school art for a while. I know, crazy, taught high school students. But anyways, I had started listening about podcasts. I was like, oh, these are fun, and how do you do a podcast? And then asked my students, oh, hey, do you want to do a podcast in class? And they were like, sure, we love listening to ourselves. And so I taught them how to do. And I said, as long as it's art related, can't be off topic because this is it's an art class. So I picked a topic, they did it, and then I watched it. I was like, the quietest the class has ever been. Because as soon as we're recording, everybody just quietly dispersed, they were very professional all of a sudden. And then they were like, oh my gosh, they really enjoyed it. And I was like, they were having too much fun. I need to do this. And so I started corralling some of my art teacher friends. I said, hey, would you be a guest on my podcast? And then they said, oh, sure, why not? And so it became kind of this thing of like just people that I just kind of would meet and run into and form a connection. And I'll be honest, some of the people in this room, I've interviewed Professor Brandon, who was my motion media professor, Kelly, who is a director of a design for rugs, Kara, who is somewhere in here as well. She is a mural artist and graphic novelist as well. So I've interviewed different creatives, and I just really enjoyed listening to their stories. It really, I think because of that, it pushed me to keep going. Because then I kind of realized it's like, oh, well, they're doing it, and like, why can't it be me? And so I just kept going and going, and then, I don't know, it's like now I'm up to over 200, and so they drop Sundays.
And how do we find them?
Oh, yeah, if you go to, I apologize, I didn't think about this, it's anchor.fm /N Miller Illustration. Or you can type in, or you can search for My Creative Life with Nancy Miller in Spotify or Apple podcasts. It goes to like 9 different platforms. It's just like this thing, and I just upload it, and then I set it, and I forget it, and it just drops. It's like I do them like 3 or 4 months in advance. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I'd like to hear them.
Yeah, that's good. Oh well, thank you so much for listening. I hope it inspires you to in your creative pursuits.
Thank you. I'm sure it will.
Yes.
I was curious, you were talking about teaching children how to make children's books. And speaking from my experience, when I started learning filmmaking, it actually for a short period of time ruined the experience of enjoying films because I knew how it was made. And I'm curious, what are children's reactions to them learning how to make the books that they're enjoying?
Ooh, they love it. Like I was talking to one of the people here, I think it was Jamie, about it. So I started doing last year. They had to make their own comic book, and so the kids all love comics, like graphic novels with the younger generation is huge right now, and so they're like. I don't know if you've heard of Dogman, but he is like David Pilkey is like the #1 selling in the graphic novel space, and so they are all about making their own stories. That resonates with kids at a young age. What I learned, and I asked my second graders, like, what makes a good story? And I was like, he told me, you have to have some interesting characters. You have a problem, and how did it make me feel after I read it? And I was like, oh, you are a genius. I have nothing to teach you. Because lots of times you have to be at a graduate level to realize, like, it doesn't really matter how beautiful the illustrations are, but what is that story? And so the kids find it very empowering. Most of the times when we're little kids, we forget about this. It's like somebody's telling you when you're going to eat, when you're going to go to bed, and to have that creative power to say, I get to have my story, and no adult is going to tell me how I'm going to write it or make it. That's super empowering for a young kid. And so they were just like, I can make my own characters, I can do whatever I want. Basically, as long as there's a beginning, middle, and end, and then we can see a visual storytelling. And so for their level, they love it. And I think that's where I get them. It's really, I think we did a month of that, and I was shocked. It was like, I thought they'd be burned out, but it's a sweet spot. It's like second grade and up, and so it works really well.
Thank you.
I got one.
Yeah.
People are interested in your books. Where do they go?
Oh, well, okay, so here's the thing. My other books are out of print. It happens, so if they stop selling, they're just like, well, it's out of print. But in spring of 2026, my picture book, Sun, Moon, and Star, which I ended up selling on my own. And that's where one of the things you have to kind of trust. It's like, even when other people, like I had a first, no shade on my first agent, so I had a literary agent first time around. It did not work out. It is a business relationship, that's what I learned. So we parted ways, and then I was like, I made all these stories. Somebody out there is going to be interested in one of these stories. And so I took a leap of faith, and this is something that commonly tell you, they say, don't do this in the publishing industry, you must have an agent. And I found some actual publishing houses that were open to submission. So like Chronicle Books, Holiday House, they are not big five, but they're very reputable publishers, and you can send them your work. You don't have to have an agent. They just have an inbox, and once a week, there is an actual editor that will check your emails, they will read your submission, and then decide if you want. So I think after 2 weeks that I sent it out on my own, an editor contacted me and says, oh, I like this. Can we meet? And I was like, really? You want to meet with me? And so we did a Zoom session, and she was like, can you do these changes? I think it's great. She said, take a month, but no more than 2, and get it back to me. And so I took a whole month to really think about the revisions she was asking for. And part of me was kind of sad. I was like, dang it, I didn't think about this on my own. And that was like a year ago I could have made these changes on my own, but that's what good editors and art directors are there for. They show you, the forest from the trees, so to speak. And so her changes made it so much better. And she's still, the art director, editor are still giving me feedback at this point. But yeah, and then a month later I sent it, and then she offered me a book deal. She said that she would like to acquire it. So it's one of those things. I think there is this idea, you just have this belief that in trust that you're going to be able to get it out there. Yeah, don't always believe what everybody says. Some people are like, there's hard line rules. I said, no, I don't know. There really aren't any hard line rules, because everybody's making some creative, it's however you choose to do it, and then how you work it around the circumstances.
All right, cool. Well, thank you, Nancy.